After many months, the Borodino is finally available for purchase in World of Warships Legends. This ship was released for rent several months ago, and I think at the time it received universal praise from pretty much everybody who rented it. Everybody wanted to see it come back, and now here it is in August of 2024. We'll break down the cost of obtaining this Tier 7 premium Russian battleship. If my calculations are correct, it may be prohibitively expensive to actually obtain this thing. But before we get to that breakdown, I think we should probably break down the stats of the ship as I usually do. Now, this match that you're about to see before you is a Kraken, and normally the type of match I would not like to put on YouTube, because by the time everything is said and done, only one blue ship is going to have sunk. So not the closest, most competitive game you've ever seen, and if you do obtain this ship, you're probably not going to be getting Krakens all the time. Anyway, there's going to be a good midsection here for you to see my commander build and the armor viewer of this ship. I'll show those to you at the time, but let's begin with the stats as we take some torpedoes there from the sky and lose about 8,000 HP. How lovely. To begin with, we've got 60,400 HP, which is certainly not the highest amount of HP you've ever seen for a Tier 7 battleship. In fact, I think it is kind of low. It's more like Tier 6 numbers. The guns, we don't have a commander on here that can buff the range. I was using Lev Galler for a time, actually, which I normally don't do on the Russian battleships, mostly because most of the Russian battleships come with only 2 repair parties stock, and Lev Galler doesn't have any commander skills that would allow you to get more, but the Borodino comes with 3 stock, which eliminates that problem. And, well, it's only got 6 guns, putting it in the same sort of category as things like Georgia or Champagne, both of which also only have 6 guns. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a problem when not a lot of shells hit. So I found Galler is actually a good commander to use for this particular Russian battleship. Although my commander in this match is a little bit different. We'll go over that in a second. But without Galler and the flammable cannoneer skill, which I don't have influencing this build, the guns range out to 17.6 kilometers, enough to get the job done, but it's not exactly comfortable. The reload time, though, is very comfortable with the reload mod in the 4th slot, 25.2 seconds. Nice and quick, quicker than the Georgia's 6-gun reload, and I think perhaps quicker than the Champagne. Maybe around the same time. Champagne also does have a reload booster, though this thing does not. Turret traverse time, like on most Russian battleships, pretty quick here, 35.3 seconds. Maximum HE shell damage 5,800 with a 48% fire chance. And maximum AP shell damage 13,500. The AA defenses have an aggregate rating of 71 for what it's worth, but I don't really have a good sense of whether this thing has good AA or not. I'm going to say not. I've faced carriers before, and they've been a problem, but I think that is true for a number of battleships. There is our first kill, by the way. These are, of course, 16-inch guns. North Carolina has a 26 or 25 millimeter bow, so we overmatch it and take him out. The maneuverability on the Borodino is pretty bad, moving on swiftly. We've got a maximum speed of 31.9 knots, which is fairly quick, and that's all right. But the turning circle is 1,060 meters, and, well, that's not very small, let's just put it that way. It takes a long time to get this thing turned in a different direction. The rudder shift time, though, is okay at 15.4 seconds. And this build, for the commander, I've got the concealment mod, of course, in the 3rd slot. Commander I've actually got at the helm is Azerlane Sovetski Rossiya, who buffs the concealment. And then one of her inspirations is Kondo. The other is Iachino. With this build, I've got a detectability range of 12 kilometers by sea. But if you wanted to build fully into concealment with Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya and use Kondo and Swirsky as both of their inspirations, you could get this concealment down to 11.6, which is a fairly significant number. Given the radar, which you saw us use moments ago to get vision of the North Carolina inside of the Alpha Cap, the radar has an 11.7 kilometer range, so if you did want to build fully into stealth, technically you could get zero point 0.1 kilometers of stealth radar on a battleship, which is a little bit absurd. You certainly don't need to do that, and you probably don't even need to spec into concealment as much as I have with Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya. I just like it, and I think being spotted so short of range is good for this ship. But we probably should look at the commander build as we push into the Alpha Cap to take it after dispatching both the North Carolina and the Baltimore. As you could see with the Baltimore, sometimes these 6 guns are pretty accurate. We did, after all, Citadel the Baltimore straight through the nose. But sometimes these guns are just not accurate at all, which is why I think Lev Galler is probably a better commander choice than Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya. But of course, this game just happened to work out. In any case, here's the Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya build. As I said, we've got Iachino and Kondo as inspirations, and of course we've got skills like Master Mechanic on Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya that gives us 5 heals. The repair party on the Borodino, by the way, is improved compared to the typical battleship heal. It's not quite a super heal. The amount of HP restored per second is 744, and the repair party lasts for a duration of 20 seconds. Super heals do about 1,000 to 1,200 HP per second, and conventional battleship heals do somewhere between 400 and 500 a second. So this thing is somewhere in the middle. It restores more HP than the typical heal, but it doesn't quite rise to the super heal level. We've also got that radar. The stats on that are, as I've said, an 11.7 km range, but it's only got a 20-second duration, and of course the reload time on these guns is 25 seconds, which, while fast, it's not fast enough to fire 2 salvos for the duration of 1 radar. The radar is going to be a lot more useful if you have teammates who can capitalize on the spotting for the 15 seconds that they can see the ship you're detecting with the consumable. Probably good if you have division mates, but without division mates, maybe not so good. Also, I don't know what it says about this match that the CV was the 3rd kill on our list here, but that's how it's turning out. We're pushing into the center now, and we're getting spotting from the friendly CV in order to spot this destroyer on the minimap, which lets us know that he's in range of our radar. So, of course, we detect him, we fire with the AP, and the results are all right, but we're going to switch to HE as this Fletcher smokes up. Here you can see the downside that I just mentioned about the radar consumable. It's going to run out before we get our guns reloaded, and Fletcher is going to disappear inside of the smoke screen. But somebody's going to pick him up here with a radar of their own. One of the cruisers behind us, in fact. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but there it is, spotting the Fletcher. He goes dark momentarily. We hit him with the HE. He's got torpedoes on the way, and we're not going to be able to avoid all of them. We do take 1 or 2, actually, but there you see the power of the repair party, restoring a little bit more HP than you might expect from other battleships. Fletcher is nearly on his way out, and we're going to send him back to port with this HE salvo. There's some good accuracy on that one. Not too bad at all. We should probably take a look at the armor now that we've got a little bit of a lull in the action before this game ends. The armor here is perhaps not great for those of you who might have noticed that all 6 guns for the Borodino are on the bow. That doesn't mean you can really bow tank in this ship. It's got 25mm bow plating. To be fair, it does have an icebreaker at the waterline, but the icebreaker is small enough that I think you could probably still hit the Citadel from the front, and the citadel is, of course, very exposed, like it is on most Russian cruisers and battleships. There's a good salvo on the Kansas, by the way. Sometimes these guns can do absolutely filthy things. Sometimes, as you saw earlier in this match, the dispersion is just not very good. So, again, Lev Galler, not a bad choice. Just not running him because I like demented concealment builds. And the side armor on the Borodino, it's got 50 millimeter plating on the upper belt and 50 millimeter plating on the deck, which means the middle of the ship is actually quite tanky against battleship AP and even HE. Plus, there's not a lot of superstructure to speak of, but still, you have to be careful about where you're placing the ship, and you don't want to get caught in a scenario where you're actually stuck bow in and you can't escape, especially against some sort of battleship that can overmatch your bow. There's our Kraken Unleashed with another Citadel. But how do you get the Borodino? We should probably talk about that before this match ends. Well, it costs 12,500 drachmas in the store. And according to my breakdown of things, you can get a total of 1,500 drachmas for completing the calendar event. And then the Admiralty backing with the campaign will give you 3,000 drachmas. And finally, today, the web event has debuted. According to the breakdown they posted on wowslegends.com, you can get a total of 2,000 drachmas from the web event. That's 1,500 for opening all 48 cells in the web event, plus an extra 500 for opening 16 cells, for a total of 2,000. In total, that's 6,500 drachmas. So you'd have to get the remaining 6,000 for the 12.5k you need for Borodino by buying crates, which means given each crate drops 250 drachmas, you would need 24 crates for a total of 24,000 doubloons, plus the cost of the Admiralty backing, which is 2.5k doubloons, so 26,500 doubloons in total. A ridiculously expensive ship. And while it's pretty fun and unique and also even good, I doubt it's worth that much. But, if you're willing to spend it, that's how much you're going to have to spend. I may be incorrect about these calculations. If anybody calculates it differently, be sure to let me know in the comments section. But that's all I have to say about the Borodino for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.